Sign-ups for the best way to improve at TFT are now open. In today's video, you'll get a chance to meet all of the mentors who may potentially be available as your personal trainer for TFT in set 16 for Project Mentor, which is a personalized, highly specialized training program that I've devised with some of the best coaches in the entire TFT scene. If you want to find out more, you can check out the overview page on my website at projectsbykai.com/project-mentor. Let's go meet the mentors.
So my TFT accolades and achievements, I started competing, or kind of, I guess I should say playing the game more seriously in like the latter half of 5.5, and I hit 1400 LP challenger then, and then ever since then I started competing in set 6. So I was 1400 plus all the way since 5.5 all the way to now set 16 this is going to be, and I hit rank 1 for 3 different sets. I've made 4 regionals now, and I'm one of the only players who have competed in both TPCs. So that's set 15, and then in set 16 I'll also be in TPC. I would describe my coaching style as very fluid, where I try to adjust based on what I think my students need, just because I find that there are a lot of people who kind of just need like to get better at everything, right? But then there's also a lot of people where it's just specific things that are at like a level that maybe they shouldn't be, or specific things where like it's kind of an easy fix and you'll get a lot out of it, right? It's kind of like the old adage about doing 20% of the work for 80% of the results. So instead of kind of using a blanket style, it's more shifted towards where we can put in the 20% to get the 80% back. So this is also very fluid depending on who I'm coaching, like what our kind of rapport is, and we usually kind of get into some sort of a groove in terms of like routine or what we're going to do. So for example, there are some people we just mainly do VOD, right? And it'll just be like 2 VODs a session, and then we'll go through them and kind of talk about the meta and like decisions, and then it'll just be 2 VODs a session, and then sometimes I'll give feedback for stuff that they can specifically do. And then for other people, it's more like question based and driven based on conversation, right? So it'll just be like conversation to start, maybe 15 minutes, and then VOD, and then at the end of the session more conversation about kind of like the meta, pumps, strategies, and like how to improve and what, you know, people are lacking or what they're not lacking. So it really depends on what the student kind of prefers or what we've kind of been working with. I think I'm one of the only players who has competed in tier 1, or who will be competing in tier 1 for both sets that it's been active. Also, I think I'm pretty much one of the only people who has like the amount of experience coaching and playing at a very high level. Like I have been coaching outside of this and inside of this project. I think I've been in this project since like set 11 or 10. I don't remember exactly when it started, but I was here from the start, right? All the way until now. And before that, like I did coach all the way since set 7. So I've been coaching since set 7. I've been competing since set 6. So I just have a lot of experience. I would consider myself very flexible. Maybe I had a lot of trouble in the past playing too flexibly in terms of like lines. I like playing unique lines. Like a lot of the time when you see people play like lines in tournament that a lot of people have never heard of or never seen before, it's just like tech from other servers or something that people thought would look good. And so I like playing a lot of those, right? Just lines that are not really known about or not really played, and kind of being like on the forefront of testing comps, or like on the forefront of just playing lines that, you know, sometimes are not actually that good, which is how I've run into trouble in the past while competing. So I think I'm a very, very flexible player.
So I started playing TFT competitive in set 11, and in set 12 was my first time making the Americas regionals. And since then, I've slowly been working my way up and trying to improve more and more. And it kind of culminated in this most recent set 15, where I had pretty much my best regionals performance ever. I was able to make week 2, gaining me a slot in the tier 1 competition in set 16. And I was able to get top 10 in regionals, very close to making the final lobby in Worlds, but wasn't quite able to get there this time. But it is something that I'm definitely going to be pushing for in the future. Also, I have been coaching competitive games since 2022. Back then, I was playing another game competitively called Pokemon Unite, which I actually was a world champion in. And since then, I have gained plenty of coaching experience, and I kind of learned the process and the systems of working your way up from the bottom. And because of that, I have a lot of confidence that I can help lower level players really figure out what it takes to improve. I would describe my coaching style as I'm very nitpicky, and I like to get into a lot of the really fine details, especially if you're on the higher level of the ladder, like let's say like Diamond, Master, and that level. I think the higher and higher you get, paying attention to every single little detail in every single round, and me pointing that out should be very insightful, and it should help you improve in a lot of different things, such as like roll timings or even positioning or scouting. Like all these little things, they really come into play every single round in TFT, and that's really an emphasis, is that I want to focus on every single mistake or error, I guess you could say, that you might be making in every single round. However, that being said, it would be overwhelming to try to remember every single thing at the end of a session. So I think I am also really good at pinpointing the 1, 2, or 3 like key fundamentals or factors to focus on in between each of our sets. So like post a VOD review, I can really help you narrow your weaknesses or your points to improve on to like 1, 2, or 3 tangible points. I would say a coaching session with me, typically a lot of times what I will do with students is like maybe for the first like 5-10 minutes, we might just like talk about how the games have been going, or if they're like really curious about a specific comp, or if it's like, especially if it's a new patch, a lot of time we'll do an in-depth like meta rundown and just making sure that they feel like they have a good confident meta read going into their games. That way they feel like they always have a good direction. And then afterwards, pretty much always there will be a VOD review. So we'll typically have some of your gameplay, some of the students' gameplay, and that's where we will get to see exactly what mistakes you might be making, what things you might be doing well also, but especially trying to focus on what mistakes you might be making in those games, and thus that's where we'll find on the things that we can improve. So that's typically what a normal coaching session will consist of. I would say there are a few things that make me unique compared to a lot of other mentors. Number one is I'm currently full-time, which I hope shows, number one, I'm very passionate about TFT, and number two, it just should hopefully show that I have a lot of time and I kind of put everything I have into it. Not only should that show my passion, hopefully, it should also show that I will always be very sharp and very on point with the meta, with any new comps that are coming up throughout the set. That happened a lot in set 15, and I will be very up to date with those things. So I will always have knowledge of those. And if I had to say one other thing, I would just say my experience, which I kind of touched upon earlier. I've just been coaching for almost 4 years now in competitive games, and just having worked with so many different players of so many different levels and trying to help them improve and reach the next level, I think I've really learned how to tailor to individual students and their styles of learning. I would say I'm a pretty well-rounded player. Like, I'm not super leaning towards like level 8, super leaning towards reroll always. I think I am pretty well-rounded at all of them. If I had to pick one, I prefer level 8 and fast 9 comps a little bit more than reroll. I just find them more fun. But there are some reroll comps I really like as well. I just have a big emphasis on high tempo, which I think is very important, especially for players that are not challenger and trying to be there. Just learning how to play strongest board and slam the right items early game is so important, because if you think about it, if a challenger were to play in your elo, that's how they would win a lot of games, is just by steamrolling with tempo and playing stronger boards early game, and thus win streaking, putting themselves in comfortable positions. So I do think like that is a very like key point of the play style.
Been NA regional finalist like 6 times. I've been top 5 pretty much like every set on the ladder. I peaked like 1770 LP. Yeah. I think coaching style, I probably focus first on like macro level stuff, like trying to figure out why you pick certain lines, pick certain augments, just how you think about the game and plan out your game. And then after that can go down into like the micro level stuff, like positioning stuff, meta, certain item making, stuff like that. I think we can start off by like, if you have any questions you want to talk about or topics you want to think about during the day, then you can let me know. We'll probably have a VOD open of one of your games that we can look at. But that's mostly just like a opener for discussion on how you like think and play the game. So I look through the VOD, pause at certain parts, just talk about certain things. Maybe we can open up team builders or stats in between to really drill down on some like questions and concepts. And then if we ever need more material, we can just look at some other VODs and then just answer questions on concepts. I think our coaches or just teaching in general, I think I care most about just learning about how you think about the game. So, you know, a lot of points on learning about concepts will actually start with you on like why you do certain things, and then me trying to understand like your habits, how you approach decision making, and then I'm trying to improve or realign that. I think you know, TFT has a lot of thinking that you have to do every game, and decision making can be really hard for some parts. So trying to smooth that process out and then just learn how you think and how you like approach logic and stuff is like probably my main priority. Do this while VOD reviewing, or also just if you have like question, like a big conceptual question, just like how do you approach like contested comps or like what is tempo or stuff like that, then like I can probably give you like a really long explanation over text on like not just what it is, but like how to think about it when approaching decisions in your game. I think personally, you probably consider me like a tempo flex kind of player. Usually like trying to stay strong if I can throughout the game, and then just finding like a strong line that probably keeps my like average placement pretty high. I think historically I've had a pretty low eighth rate, but also sometimes a low first rate because kind of like a low risk taker, usually trying to just go the tempo of the lobby and then find my best way to go like second, third, or fourth.
So I've been ranked one most sets since set 12. I made the regional finals in set 12 and 13 and went to the World Championship. And recently, in this previous set 15, I won the Tedeson's Cup 1. For my coaching style, I usually try to focus a lot more on improving students' fundamentals, such as playing stronger boards, spamming items, all that stuff, rather than talking about set to set or patch to patch knowledge. Although, of course, I do discuss that as well. I usually try to go very in-depth into minute and certain details about the game because I generally believe that guiding students to formulating a better thought process and helping people learn how to improve is usually the best way to coach and actually facilitate long-term progress. So for a coach session with me, I usually try to go through a VOD with a student and generally discuss what I think can be improved. I usually try to go through the VOD and ask students for their thought process behind every choice they make, such as, augment selection, which items to take, what items to slam, what line to play. I try to crack the logic behind making those choices, often talk about what I would have done in those spots. I think what sets me apart from the other mentors is that unlike many of the other mentors, I became a quote unquote top player without really interacting with having people in the community or having any study partners or study groups. I think this is because I really have a strong understanding of how to actually improve at the game. When people ask me on stream what the difference between a masters and GM player is or a GM and challenger player is, I always say that it's the ability to actually learn how to get better at the game and the ability to learn from your mistakes. And I think that's something that I really focus on during coaching and what really sets me apart. So I think for my own playstyle, I generally try to play TFT in a very fundamentally sound way. Playing strongest board, slamming items early, playing like strong lines. In every coaching session I've ever done, I always tell people the game is about playing a strong board. I believe that's like fundamentally the best way to play TFT. It's the way the game's meant to be played, and that's what I try to teach.
So I'm multi-set challenger, so challenger every set since set 8, usually around top 30-ish channel. I was able to make regionals in set 10 and set 15 respectively, and my highest rank on ladder was 1730 LP at rank 3. My coaching style is very, very straightforward, where I will be very, very harsh on criticism, and I will be very direct in what needs improvement. I prefer to have a style where I will sit down with a student and we will go through a VOD and we will go through bit by bit, and I tend to pause the VOD at certain points and be very, very specific with like what we should do here. Like I will say, okay, in this moment you should have rolled this amount of gold. We can stop here instead of continuing on. And very similar to generally how I play and study as well. Coaching sessions with me usually range from 1.5 hours to 2 hours usually. It's on the longer end of most coaches. What I usually do is at the very start, we go through a VOD. Sometimes it's multiple VODs, like 3 or 4 VODs, and we'll go through each VOD and see, okay, this is what's happening here, right? Like we'll look at what you could have done better throughout the VOD. And at the end of the session, I tend to have a meta rundown. So I will go through comps that are good and bad during the patch. I'll go through stats live on the screen. Sometimes in the VODs itself, I will go through positioning as well, using tactics tools. Last bet specifically, I will go through itemization in depth because that was one of the most crucial points last set. And additionally, out of session, I will provide feedback and answer any questions if my students are asking any, especially with statistics. If people want to know whether certain things are good, I will go in depth with it and answer that. I would say my uniqueness is I tend to focus on my students a lot compared to a lot of other mentors. Like for example, in this program, there's a mid-set tournament and an end-of-set tournament. I will spend a few hours before the tournaments just to help them prepare, go through stats, lots of odds and stuff. So I'm willing to spend a lot more time in addition to the sessions just to make sure people are on track and doing well. And if they have any additional questions or want extra sessions, I'm also open to just doing some, because I'd like to see people improve a lot. I tend to be mostly a flex player. I would say more recently, because the meta has shifted so much, like over the last few sets toward X comp is like S tier and then some okay comps after that. So I tend to still try to be flexible and test out a bunch of different lines, but if not possible during like a certain time, I'm open to just committing to 3 or 4 lines on a patch. So I would say fast 8 is my preference with flex play.
I've hit rank 1 on the server that I play on. I've hit also rank 3 on NA. Apart from TFT, I've also hit rank 1 in multiple different strategy games such as Hearthstone, Legends of Runeterra, Hearthstone Battlegrounds. When it comes to my coaching style, I like to focus a lot more on relearning fundamentals earlier on in the set. I want to give the students something that they can take away towards future sets as well. Later on in the set, we will focus a lot more on patch knowledge and how to prep for tourneys when the Project PV tournament does come around. As for the sessions themselves, I like to structure them similarly to how music sessions go. I believe a lot in habit correction and habit formation as it happens. So you won't see stuff like WOD reviews of games that have happened 4 to 5 days ago. You also won't see live coaching. You'll see something of a mix of the two, wherein we'll go into a session, we'll play a game. I'll just be muted and making notes while I see you play the game. And right after your game is done, we'll delve into the nitty-gritties, right? We'll talk about every single turn in depth. It'll be a back and forth. You will be able to tell me what your thought process was. I can help you then figure out what you should be thinking. And what this helps is correcting behaviors or like bad habits immediately at the onset. It's also fresh in your memory right at the time. So we can make sure that if there is something that you had on your mind that you wanted to talk about, we can talk about it right then and there. I just believe in having a lot of fun. I think the best learning will happen if you're having fun with the stuff, if you're having fun with the sessions, if you're looking forward to every one of them. It shouldn't feel like study, it shouldn't feel like work, it should be a hobby, it should be something that you're doing out of passion. And I try to make my sessions as fun as you can. I genuinely believe that that's when you learn most. I love when there's a lot of chaos in the meta. I love when it's a new meta. I love figuring stuff out and being the first to the punch. I also really like being able to optimize the last 1% out of every single player and every single decision. I like tempo and I like playing for win streaks.
So my first achievement is obviously getting challenger. It was in my second set that I played. It was set 6.5 was the first set I played. Since then I've always been challenger, and for the past 6 sets I've always been 2000 LP. I also did a lot of coaching with Solorisang, with other known players in the community. I'm studying with a study group that half the players have been to Worlds, and we are always striving to get better and know the game better. Yeah, so basically my coaching style is very open. One of my strengths is that I'm also a psychology and education student. So I really believe in adapting the coaching style to the student and not being really fixed on what I want and what's comfortable for me. So basically on the first few sessions we see what works for you. Like do you like discussing more theory? Do you like to do more documents, more VOD review? Obviously we do everything, but we really put the emphasis on what the students want and what the students is helpful for them. Okay, so it really depends on what type of session. So basically in the program we do we always do meta rundown at the start of any session. We talk about new innovations, new comms, some stuff that we haven't discussed before. Then we go and we either do a VOD review or we really do a theoretical. Obviously we do both kinds of stuff, but it's really up to what we want to do in that session and what works best for you. And it could either be writing documents together, it could be VOD reviewing your own games, it could be VOD reviewing another player games, basically VOD reviewing Western games, VOD reviewing other players' games. So it's really flexible. It's not like every session we're gonna do this exact thing. It's I think I have a lot of experience in coaching. I do a lot of private coaching as well. None of the other mentors have played ladder like I do. They don't interact with the game to the level that I do, basically 24/7 of watching streams, interacting with chat, interacting with the community. So I think that is one of my signs of how deeply connected to the game I am, and the level of openness. I'm really you DM me, I'm probably gonna answer you very, very quick. I'm available, I'm there. My place is very safe. I don't like to play first or eighth or taking big risks. That's not really what I like to do. Mostly because also on ladder, it's very high risk, low reward basically. You go first, you get 20 LP, you go fifth, you lose 80 LP, so it's not really a balanced environment. But that is my personal playstyle, but obviously I can help and guide into playing risky and playing for tournaments, for checkmates and stuff like that as well.
I am a multi-set challenger. I first hit challenger around, I think that's 6, and have been challenger in most of the sets since then. trolled in some of them. Aside from that, second place at the Shurima Cup, baby. Second place to Setsuko, which is now the equivalent of like basically a tier 1 cup that was different back then. And then, you know, some solid performances. I've gone like top 2, top 3 in like sub-regionals since then. My coaching is focused very, very intensely around fundamentals. What I'm trying to do in a coaching session with you is understand the way that you're approaching the game and some kind of fundamental errors in how you are approaching the game, whether that's, you know, an econ and that's building strongest board that can be, you know, related to your meta knowledge and things like that. But oftentimes I find a lot of people think, oh, you know, my issue is not knowing, you know, this comp or this item or whatever, but really it's something kind of like deeper. It's not really understanding how to play the game of TFT. I really like focusing on that kind of stuff because that carries over across sets. You know, we'll be working together through one set, but hopefully these learnings that I'm giving you can, you know, go into set 17, 18, 19, set 30. You'll still be able to use these same learnings. So that's why I like to focus on fundamentals in my sessions. I really like doing VOD review, or I actually like a lot doing kind of a 1 hour like yap session where we just talk back and forth about, it can be about the meta, it can be about just kind of like deep fundamental questions, but the bulk, the bread and butter of my my sessions are going to be VOD reviews where you bring in VODs and then we go over them together. I really like this because, you know, when you're playing a game and I'm in call with you, it's really easy to get distracted by either the game or our conversation. It's hard to focus on both at the same time. Also, we can't like pause and really break things down. Oftentimes in VOD reviews, we'll get to say 2-1 augment selection and just pause the VOD there and talk for, you know, 10, 15 minutes, maybe longer about all the different options and the different lines you could go from this spot. I really like that about VOD reviews, that combined with the fact that there's no pressure, things you can bring in any games you want. If you have a really rough game, you can bring it into VOD review and say, hey, you know, what went wrong this game? I was really lost in this game. So a lot of VOD review, some other stuff, but we love VOD reviews. I have a ton of experience coaching, and I've been doing this for multiple years at this point. I've coached a ton of people from different levels of play. You know, I've coached people as low as, you know, below masters, like Emerald or something like that. And I've coached people up to, you know, like Grandmaster, Challenger. So I'd say I have a lot of coaching experience. There definitely, I'll admit, there are other coaches in this program who are higher elo than me, but I would say I am a very, very good coach and I have a lot of good experience, you know, coaching players. I also, you know, you guys know from my content, are constantly doing these VOD reviews and keeping up with, you know, top players and insights from that. So I'm a big student of the game. And so in my coaching, I can give those learnings from all of my studies to you. I mean, I'm a flex player. I hate, you know, hard forcing comps and things like that. I'm trying at the end of the day to play optimal TFT when I can. That doesn't necessarily always mean doing the craziest thing. One of the things that I've learned over the last few sets, more recently, even, you know, great players do this, is kind of say, I'm going to simplify some of the decisions that I need to make because TFT is a game with infinite complexity. And so if every single step of the way you're trying to do the most robotic, like suboptimal or optimal thing that you could do, you're just going to overload your brain. So part of that is simplifying the game down when it makes sense, but also adding complexity when it makes sense. A lot of people will do kind of lazy things, and I'm somebody who tries in all things not to be lazy in TFT, tries not to autopilot. I'm not somebody who's, you know, playing TFT with Netflix on my other monitor. If that's you, I'll try to break you of that habit when we do coaching, because I think that's horrible. TFT is such a complex game, and there's so many things that you can do within a game of TFT, so much edge that you can find that's really what I'm focused on when I'm playing TFT, is trying to find every edge that I can, just playing games of TFT in general. I love Fast 9. That's fun. Any chance I can go Fast 9, I will do that. But, you know, it's not every game.
Well, I won MSI in set 5.5. I'm usually peak top 20 challenger every set, and I stopped playing as much. I reached rank 2 in like set, I think 6, and then in 12. 12 for sure I did. I reached 1700 LP. My accolades actually is I coach a lot of TFT on the side as well. I've been doing it for several years. My coaching style would be, well, for like advanced players, which is what this program is, we always start out with a VOD review because I'm usually able to identify those issues pretty easily within 1 or 2 VODs. And then it's kind of like pyramid style where we tackle the biggest problems and then we work down from there, because there's usually 1 or 2 glaring problems for, like, say, a master player, right? And it's different from person to person. I guess it's a segue from last one. It's start off with a VOD review. Sometimes the initial, like, hour, we might be able to do 2 VOD reviews. If I see, like, say, your stage 2 is weak, I will hyper focus on that. Like, if it's, like, by far your weakest part of your game, we'll look at like several VODs stage 2. And then, like, say next time when we meet again, I'll see if you're still making the thing, like the big stage 2 mistakes, because, right, like that problem is like way worse than everything else. Well, I know like a lot of coaches, not only in TFT, but like people who teach in general, will just show you how to do something and then they'll just leave it at that. Be like, copy this, right? Like, it's how it is. It's easy. But I have a more personalized style. Let's say I have 5 different Masters players. Each one I'll treat differently because they'll usually have different like glaring problems. I'll ask them questions to try to lead them to the answer and like understand their thought process. I won't just give them the answer. I think that's important for anything. I like to play safe and get top 4 first, and then for any patch, and then I worry about like figuring out how to win, because I think like once you get to 4 digits, right, like you trying to play first race, sometimes it hurts your LP a lot if you get 8th. But there are definitely times when like you should be able to get first, and like this is especially relevant to like tournaments where you have to win. So my thing is definitely like train your mind to like say not take call to chaos when you're in a good spot, when there's something else that's better, right? And only take those kind of things when you're in a bad spot. Other than that, I feel like I used to be like a 4 cost / fast 9 player, but I've been like I'm pretty balanced nowadays, I think, in terms of like my preferred playstyles.